Wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Arrogance may not be a uniquely American trait, but I must say you do it better than anyone.
Well, good morning. It's Wednesday. Weird week with the holiday weekend. Oh, and welcome back, by the way. With the Labor Day weekend of 2017 and getting back from D.C., it's kind of thrown me for a loop as to which day it is. And getting everything packed back up and put away and, taking care of the stuff that happens while you're away. You got to mow the grass. You got to get groceries. Life, stuff like that. So we're getting back on the saucer, but I have to, excuse me, I have to tell you that I am suffering today from the worst malady that, anybody that builds models knows what this is. It's called M.A.D D. M.A.D.D, Modeler's Attention Deficit Disorder. And I'm good and mad today because working on this UFO, this flying saucer, this guy right here, and I really want to work on the discovery in the other room. But here's the thing. I know that if I start on that discovery, I'm going to forget all about this. And that's not fair. I'm cheating on this. I don't want to be cheating on this model with another model. Lord, that would be the problem, with, supermodels as opposed to plastic models. Having too many of them to pay attention to. But I already see Christopher Johnson has been languishing here on the desk, and this is the second time I've started this and put it aside. So I do not want a similar fate to befall the flying saucer. So the best course I could do is just barrel through and finish it. I'm mostly done. I'm down to the painting and the final construction. I'm mostly done. I just need to concentrate on that, get it done so that I can hit the discovery at full warp speed or whatever you want to call it. So let's catch you up where we are on the flying saucer, shall we? Okay, so here we are with the flying saucer. Basically what I've been doing is just indicating certain panels here and there on the top, and putting in some little panel lines and some scorching and some shading and some things like that. Because what I want to do is get this guy buffed up and ready to go, and I want to insert this up through the bottom of it and get it all glued in nice and tight. And then the whole shebang goes onto the bottom of the saucer. But really I found the next joint that's going to be giving me any problems is fitting this in here nice and tight, gluing it in, epoxying it in, getting it in so that it will not budge, such that when I put and that is, let me pull this off here for a second. Oh, this is going on off stage, sorry about that. Okay, this is the part I need to glue up and into the bottom of that from the underside. And then this goes down on top of it, and that's where I'm, that's the next step, is this deal here. So I want to touch up the outside of this. I'm probably going to get rid of those reds, maybe at least tone down that blackish gunmetal stripe. But I want to do all that. The inside I'm kind of happy with. I've got the details up, most of the details. Everything else that I want to do once it's all glued in place. But that's the big majority of the painting that I've gotten done. I can do separately and outside. Then put it down and do, once it's in place, I can do all the touch-ups and the details. So what I want to do is do some more panel indications on this, and then hit it with a clear coat, and then go in with the Comart washes and the transparent smokes and the transparent blacks, and get into the panel lines, much like I've done on the top here and on the underside. I have already gone over it with a wash, so that's the next step. But let me take this tape up, and then we'll indicate some more panels. I like the detail I'm doing on this. It's kind of swastika-ish, not enough to call too much attention to it, but definitely if this UFO were to spin, then it would look like it's, you know, it's got a spinning motif. Like these are all, you know, leading edges and trailing edges and leading edges and trailing edges. So it's got a spin to it, even if it stands still. But enough rambling. You can tell I've had too much coffee today. Let's get back to painting. Okay, I'm back from the hobby store, the RC store, and I've got more of these so that I can swap out some more of the bolts in there and add the two other seat stands. So let's get that thing. Oh, and also while I was there, I found a spinal rod for the Discovery. But enough of that. Let's get back to this guy. Okay, it's time to balance all of this little tedious niddly work with a something big and showy. And what I'm going to do now is put the big red HYDRA logos on either side. It's not exactly on, you know, if you're going to do quadrants, it's not exactly on the side of the ship. It's more kind of in a thirds, because the rest of this ship is done in thirds. So what I'm going to do is put two logos right about there and there. And then I'll decide later whether anything needs to happen back here or not. But let's get these guys stuck down. This hull continues to flummox me completely. It is not symmetrical and it's driving me nuts. I am a symmetry buff. Even 1/3 symmetry, even if it's third, the symmetry, as long as that works, then I'm happy. But it doesn't do that either. So I can't use definitive panel lines. Now see, I've made as much of the front of it symmetrical as I can, and I've tried painting these gone. It's more or less a every other thing. It's not symmetry, because every other shape isn't necessarily the same size. So that's driving me nuts. So I know that is the front. If I laid a straight edge across it, that would be the front. This is not exactly a quarter. You would think that it is, but it's not. And I'm trying to find, these guys aren't the same size all the way around. So I just, even though I was doing them every other, there is an even number of them, but they're not the same size. So they don't line up the same way with the panel above them. So this is driving the old Azteker nuts. I'm just going to have to map imaginary coordinates on this thing and stick them down, because I can't do a mirror version on either side because the panels aren't mirrored. I know, bigger things to worry about in this world than that, but this is the kind of stuff that just gets under my skin and makes it itch. And there's the first of the two HYDRA logos popped down in place. I realized after I got it down that it was slightly off center, but hey, none of the rest of this ship is symmetrical, so I'm not going to worry about it. And I advise you not to as well. Let's put the other one down. And here we are with the masks removed. And yes, it's a big old honking red HYDRA on both sides of the ship. No doubt who this one belongs to. Of course, this was done. This one was meant to be done in the heyday of the Red Skull, when HYDRA was still very much above board and all of that. So, of course, they would put their logo on everything. So this is where we're going to leave it for this afternoon. It has really started to pour outside. We've got tropical storms coming right and left this week, so it is getting really nasty out, and which means I cannot take this outside to clear coat it. But that's the next step, clear coating this, and then rubbing it down with the clear Tamiya, the clear Comart smoke, and the transparent black, so that I can, you know, do the little bit of weathering in around the rivets and such. But this is more or less done. This is all the panels that are going to be painted. And then it will be a matter of final construction. But yes, you can see there's some honking big logos. And it's grime time, ladies and gentlemen. Was just throwing some of the this is the game color wash black, And this is the famous streaking grime from Vallejo. And just wiping it on and then, or brushing it on and then wiping it off and letting it collect around the rivets and streaking it down. I think it's effective. It certainly has knocked this logo back to the point where it looks like it was painted on and then grimed on top of. It's not sitting on top of everything. It has depth now. So we're going to let this dry overnight, and then we're going to coat it in the morning with the satin, and then maybe try to buff up some highlights on it. And the same thing is happening with the base and the gun on the top. Taking a good griming. Hello and welcome back. It is Thursday already. This week has gone by, and we are going to be doing some major stuff today. Here we have the nicely distressed top of the Flying Saucer, and it has got a nice flat coat on it. It's got the logos all aged in. It's got a flat coat on it, and the next thing to do is to take ye old main bridge cabin / place where everything goes on that now has all of the chair tops in them and all the screw bolts sticking up through it, except for that one, which will still have a chair because A, I'm a rugged individualist, and B, I'm too cheap to buy another package of 4 of those screws just for that one seat. So we're going to put a regular chair there and hope that nobody is the wiser. Or maybe I could find a 1/72nd scale figure and glue it over top of that so that no one would notice there's no chair there at all. That's something that can be decided on another day. But we're ready to turn this upside down and glue it and epoxy it in 1 minute, otherwise attach it to the inside of all of this. And then we can continue on to getting this wired into that, and the 2 parts of these put together, and skip merrily down the lane and getting close to the finish, or at least everything that can be done that's left to be done can be done from the outside. I mean, by that I mean, since this top will always and forever be removable from that, once these walls are in, and really this is the last bit that needs aging, is the sides of the sides of this riser. I can do all of that once the ship is all together. I don't have to wait until anything else is done before putting the major constructions together, and that'll be the next big trick, because the aging of the underside needs to be a little bit more in line with the aging on the top. I went a little bit heavy-handed, I must say, on the top, so now I got to age the bottom up to match it. But this needs to be glued, and glued properly and set aside to dry. So let's do that now. Well then, the cabin is firmly glued and epoxied in place, and the next bit of fun is to attach the outside cabin wall. Not as easy as you would assume, because if you push it down the whole way, for some reason it doesn't want to go in squarely with, and by that I mean the same amount poking up, sticking up out of the saucer all the way around, because I am using those 4 windows right there as a gauge to keep them the same amount of distance up from the leading edge of the saucer. Is not as easy as you would think it would be when you push everything down in place. So what I am doing is looking at the underside of those pieces right about where the thumbnail is, or the fingernail is, and making sure that that reveal on the underside is equal all the way around on all of the places where it pokes down through, like this one right here. Making sure that that is even where on its reveal. I tried making it flush, but that pushed everything up a little bit too high and pulled some of the stuff up off of the floor. But we'll have to see whether or not that's going to be a better compromise. At least if I do that, then I know everything is sitting at the same height. Then I can do some gap filling on the inside to take care of that. So that might be the best solution. Let's try that. Okay, this is proving to be more difficult than I thought, because I'm trying to line up exterior details. My biggest concern is when this is sitting flat, that if the cabin is tilted somehow, then the gun itself is going to end up being tilted somehow, because this has to sit on top of it. So the best thing I can do is to sit this on here, level it up, which this seems to be, level it up, and then glue it from the underside and not move it. And check it again, move it this way, 90 degrees. Check the level again. Seems to be a level, and then just glue it in place. Put more epoxy on it from the underside. Okay, we've come to a very big and momentous turn of events here. I have decided it is time to epoxy the top of the saucer to the bottom of the saucer. Everything else that needs to be done can be done in this configuration, and actually it will help work on the bottom if I can flip the whole thing over and sit it on that edge. So what I need to do is to do the last bit of soldering the wires together for the top and the bottom, and then whip up a batch of slow acting epoxy so that I can hit all of, see, here's the thing, pop, there you go. I have got to put glue in. Well, let me put this down. Hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm back. See, here's the thing. There are a lot of glue joints that I need to address, and they all need to be glued with even amount of force and put clamps on them. So what I need to do is put slow acting epoxy on all of these, so that will give me enough time to jostle and jockey and all the other J words the top of the saucer into place, get it down and get some clamps on it before the glue starts setting up. If I put too slow of a, well, you can't really put too slow of a glue on, it's just annoying to have to wait. But if I put too fast of a glue, either a 1 minute epoxy or a CA or something like that, I run the risk of it not being joined close enough and having the glue set up in that position, which would really mess up things. So I need to, like I said, I need to solder up the last connections, which are this one and this one. These two wires here need to go to the wiring at the top of the saucer, and the switch is already wired up and the battery's already attached, so that's good. And I'm thinking out loud here because I need to figure out what else needs to be done. Really nothing. I just need to get the glue on those, and then I can finish like I said, all the detail work on the cabin and everything else can be done while it's all together. Well, it's welcome back to Clamp City, but ironically, these clamps are working perfectly on this kit, whereas some other kits they don't. There is just enough lip on the underside to catch the bottom of it, and it's holding it down very nicely, where in other times I've had to shim these clamps to make them work. So, a couple of tense moments, prayer to the heavens, and everything seems to be set up. Got the lights going on in there just to make sure that all of the time I wasn't losing contact with anything. And we have all of the consoles lit up still. Yay. All of the panels are doing their due, including that new blue one, which I don't think you saw before, which is showing light leakage. It shows it more on the video than in real life, so I may have to dress that up with, or put another coat of paint or something over it to block that a little bit better. But things are working well. I think they are. Keep it positive. And now I will let the 5-minute epoxy do its thing and set up. While I I have to trim the height of this post a little bit, because once I put the lid on it with all of that stuff, it became too tall. So I have to mark it and chop it off. And then I got to see about how to dress up the top of that, because I have heard the voices, I have heard the concerns that the top of this needs to have some sort of cosmetic work done to it. So it's just going to have to decide what that is going to entail. Okay, and here is the center console cut down to size and with a cap on it. Looks suspiciously like a prescription bottle at this point, but no, not really. But believe it or not, that much sits up above the ring and goes into the top part. So fits like that. And you look in through the window. But got a lot done today, a lot of big stuff. Don't want to rush at this point. Want to let the epoxy cure as long as possible. And then we will come back to it and button it up and do the final detailing inside the cabin tomorrow. Maybe get all of it done, who knows. Well, hello there and welcome back. It is Friday morning. And you know, people ask me, why do you make such a big deal about saying what day it is on your videos? And quite frankly, it keeps me straight when I'm putting the pieces together, that I can listen to them and know what order they go in. And B, it also helps because I don't always say, well, you know, I painted this and let it dry for 4 hours before I went on to this. So by telling you what day it is, that kind of lets you know that time has passed between stage 1 and stage 2 or whatever, so you can do the math for yourself, because frankly, I don't have the brain for it. But if I say, hey, I did this today and it's Thursday, and then I come back on Friday, then you can fill in the gaps about how long things have dried. So it's, you know, really no bigger reason than that. But it is Friday. This is the last day on this flying saucer. I am very, very confident that I will finish today, barring any big unforeseen things that pull me away from the table today. I've got, since you last saw it, I put the cap on the core. I'm going to paint that up a gunmetal color. Core goes in here. The only reason I haven't glued it in is because it stands up a slightly taller than the rest of the cabin, and I want to be able to flip this cabin on its head like a wee turtle so that I can grunge up the undercarriage some. I'm ready to put chairs in now. I have worked on the consoles a little bit more. I've uncovered the portholes. I've got to put the window frame in. Window frame, and the last finishing touch that I was kind of keep as a surprise, but I'll go ahead and tell you now. The finishing touch is the portrait of Dear Leader Red Skull. There you go. The portrait of Red Skull to go on the wall. I was saving space here on the wall of the cabin for it. So Red Skull goes in there. And let's get to it. Oh, one of the things I'm doing now is I'm painting in details on the consoles to kind of juice those up a little bit. And then once those are done, I can go ahead and put the chairs in. Chairs are kind of in the way of everything, so that's why I haven't put them in heretofore. But let's do that. And voila, all the chairs are in. You know, of course I need to touch them up. One of the things that was a unfortunate happenstance of putting the cabin in yesterday, as I did, was that there were spots where the inside cabin floor just didn't quite line up, or left gaps between the bottom of things and the actual floor because of the height I needed to settle on. So I've decided to go in with just a little bit of epoxy sculpt and just recreate some baseboards there. And I'll clean up that bit there where it got on the red paint, but just to create a bit of a baseboard there. Also takes care of the gap along the floor. Like I said, if you really want to feel bad about your modeling, put it under a magnifying glass like this. So here's another spot over by the floor there where I needed to fill in a gap. So epoxy sculpt to the rescue. And if you tool it while it's still nice and fresh, you can get a squared off edge on it. There's the last one. just a little box right there, a little junction box for those pipes to go in. Now the last big thing, other than putting the windshield in and hanging the portrait of Herr Red Skull, is to do something about the leading or the top edge of these consoles, because they don't quite line up. There's a gap. They don't quite line up with the inside walls. So I don't think I'm going to worry too much about the main one, because looking in the window you don't really see that. But I'll see how well it goes, and if I find a good method, then I'll just probably carry it throughout the rest of them. But chairs are all in place, and just need to touch the paint up on them. Okay, we're down to the wire now on the finishing of the saucer. Just did a coat of griming on the bottom. Now you may think that's supposed to be rust. It's not. It's supposed to be dirt. This thing would take off and vertically, take off and land in the dirt. It's going to get some dirt underneath. It's going to get some blow up or kickback or whatever you want to call it. So I put some dirt on the bottom of it, which is a distinctly different color than the damaging on the top and the grease streaks and all that. So by the time you put that on there, you have a well finished flying saucer. And there's a view inside the cockpit. If you look over on that wall, you can see the smiling portrait of Red Skull himself. There you go. And of course the core, which is the main attraction. And the steps leading down to the loading ramp. We turn on the main weapon. There's the main weapon. And let me open up the underside. Open up the loading ramp. There. There's your ramp. And the posable guns. I say posable, not readily posable. There we go. Could use a little grease, but very nice. And the big honkin' HYDRA logos on the sides. Try to lift this thing up with one hand. Man, this is a heavy kit. Ooh. It certainly got that way. Now I'll just take off the gun at the top, do a quick tour of the inside. That core is going to stay. I'm going to glue that down, but there's the Red Skull portrait, the lit consoles, the happy chairs. It is, and the view down the ramp. Hello, coming up the ramp. Let me put the little stormtroopers in here just for scale, just to have a bit of fun. There, just to have a bit of fun. And we call this a finished HYDRA flying saucer. Lovely.